Okay, welcome back to another Black Voices. I am your host, Talia Cotton, and I have with us today Mr. Bobby McBride. And so I'll let him talk about himself a little bit more. And so let's get started. Let's just jump right in. For viewers who have never heard of you, who is Mr. McBride?
Well, if you have not heard of me, shame on you. I'm just a simple country boy. I mean, truly, I am that guy that enjoyed reading a lot when I was younger. But I love to have fun. And for students that I've had the pleasure of teaching over the years, they'll tell you that I don't run a very quiet classroom. It's really noisy and lots of creativity and fun things. And at the end of the day, we're all able to say that we learned quite a bit. So who am I? Just a simple country teacher. Loves to have fun.
And so, Mr. McBride, what made you select education as a career?
You know, I think education selected me. I have always been a teacher. Um, I don't know how not to be one. Um, my parents started me out in a very conservative Southern church. So I think it started there in the church in terms of going to Sunday school, and I loved going to Sunday school. Would sit up at the front, try to understand, what the Sunday school leader was trying to teach us, and then, in my own way, was asking questions, and I'm sure I annoyed them. But then a couple of times when the Sunday school leader was not there, I told the pastor, well, I could do Sunday school. Here I am, 8, 9 years old, trying to lead a Sunday school class. But I managed to pull it off those couple of times I did. Um, and then after that, I think my mother, at that time, she was a stay-at-home mom, so she decided to do in-home daycare, basically. Um, our everyday term is babysitting. But my mother did not believe in a child coming to her, not knowing anything, and then leaving the same way. So she was the original VPK. I've seen my mother take children that, from newborns to 2 or 3 years old. And when they left her to go to kindergarten, they were truly kindergarten ready. They knew the alphabet, they knew the sounds, they understood phonics, they were able to do some basic reading, they had basic numeracy skills. And of course, at that time, I had no idea what all of these terms were, and I'm sure neither did my mother. But when they left, they could read and write, they could do some arithmetic. So I think I've always been a teacher, just didn't know it. Even going into my professional life, I did the typical teenage thing, going into fast food, but wasn't satisfied just to learn how to do the different food stations. Wanted to be able to train other people how to do it and get certified to be able to do that. Moved up into food service management, and same sort of thing. Left that business, went into the corporate world, same thing. I wanted to be able to train. Human resource development was my thing. I love to see people learn and get better at something. So when it comes to education, at the time that I decided, okay, you know what, all of this teaching out here, let me actually do it in a school. I was already doing it. I just hadn't done it in a school at that time, but I've always been an educator.
I totally understand that. As you were talking, I was thinking about how I myself did Sunday school. I was the Sunday school teacher for the youth, um, around in my early 20s, and um, it's the passion. I think as an
Yes.
educator, you can't help but in every facet of your life find some way to provide knowledge or instruction. I think good teachers love to learn and love to
Hmm.
pass on that information. So I totally understand where you're coming from. I think I have that same path. I
Yeah,
really love to teach. I think it's just a part of who I am, you know?
that's it. That's it. I can't imagine not doing it.
Yes. Yes. So like I've heard people, say, what would you do if you won $1 million? Well, I would definitely take some time off. But after I come
I
back
think
from
we
my
all would.
yes, after I come back from my vacation, it would be something in education, whether it's owning a school or operating a school or doing a tutoring program or something, because I
Absolutely.
just can't breathe without it, without
Yes.
teaching and passing on that. And I think that's what make you and I great educators.
Yes. Thank you.
You recently received an award for exemplary leadership. While discussing the award, Please explore why it is important to have Black people in educational leadership positions.
This was one of those questions. When I looked at it, I started to get back to you and say, Ms. Cotton, I don't know necessarily that that's a question that I want to discuss the way that it's worded. And it's simply because there was a bit of miscommunication regarding that particular leadership award. The award was not for me. The award was for students. And, as I've come to learn a little bit more about how the sequence of events occurred, where my name was put in there, it's because you helped them. Oh, okay. So then that's really what it was about for me, was understanding that it's service. So leadership really is about service. Many times we get this erroneous idea of, I want to be the boss so I can tell everyone what to do. No, I want to be a leader so that I can help more people to achieve whatever it is that they're trying to get to. One of the motivational speakers that I like listening to says, if you can help enough people get what they want, then you will eventually get what you want. And on the one hand, while that sounds very self-serving, that, okay, I'm just doing it because I want to get something. No, not really. Yeah, bottom line, yes, I do want to get something. I want to be able to say that I was able to help this number of people, but it really isn't about that. It's actually helping them. That's the part that makes it work. And then in terms of saying persons of color, particularly African Americans, in educational leadership positions, I think that's extremely important. And I think it's important in both the predominantly minority community or setting, as well as in a much more diverse setting. First of all, in the school that we work, James S. Ricketts High School, I love the fact that we are a Title I school. And of course, the majority of our students come from minority backgrounds. We are the historically underrepresented, blah, 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 all the labels, that is us. I think it's extremely important for our students to see that we have educational leaders who look and sound just like them, who come from backgrounds just like theirs, so that they can understand, hey, I can get out of generational poverty. I don't have to plan on spending the rest of my life in fast food unless that is something I'm actively choosing to do. And then I'll tell anyone, hey, if food service is your passion, great, own that business. They need to hear those kinds of messages coming from someone in leadership positions. And then on the other hand, having had the opportunity to work in administration in a non-minority setting, in a setting that was maybe 2 to 3% persons of color, having those students see me in a leadership position and understand, oh, okay, somebody else can actually do that job. Yes. Anyone who puts forth the effort and meets the qualifications can eventually grow and become that leader. So I think it's really important for persons of color, for African Americans, to be educational leaders, because they provide an example for those students that look, sound, feel, talk, walk like us, as well as for those students who don't, so that everyone gets a chance to see that it does not matter. The color of your skin does not matter. The cultural background that you come from does not matter, as long as you are meeting whatever the requirements are. So it's, for me, one of those things that I like to say, particularly to my young men, you decide what your future is going to be. I decided that I no longer wanted to sit in this particular situation, that I wanted to have something, that I wanted to do something, I wanted to be something. And that something that I wanted to be was helping other people to get even further along. And education was the best way to do it. And being an education leader, I can actually help to influence other teachers, particularly Black male teachers. Let's set the same example. Let's push even more. Let's get even more, to rise up, to these levels of achievement.
For me, so I am the reading coach at Ricketts High School. I'm still a teacher there. And what I love about your leadership is that you lead by example.
Thank you.
You lead in, okay, I'm putting in the extra hours. I don't know if our viewers they notice, but he's still at work. It is a good 5:02. on a Wednesday night, and he is at work. He literally just sent off an email before we got on together. And your work ethic, your willingness to get into the trenches, I can see that spirit of service. And as someone who is under you, it makes me want to be my best because you are doing your best. I love leaders like that. I love the fact that you have been where I have been. You've been a science teacher. You've worked at James F. Rickards before as a teacher. You know the culture, and your energy is about making the whole school, the whole environment better. And I love that about you as our leader. You know, rarely do you see that. And I love that about you. I think that's why you got the award. You know, and I know our kids see that. You know, I know our students see that. I had a student literally say, "Can I go see Mr. McBride?" And I said, "You want to go see the principal?" Yes. That says something about you as a leader, that the kids feel safe with you. You know, especially in the school that we have. We're like you said, we're a Title I school. We're right in the heart of the African American community, and our kids feel safe with you. That is, I think, an absolute blessing, and it goes back to your role as a leader, how you are trying to serve them. So I commend you. I think the award was well put in your hands, and I am excited to see, you know, your growth as a leader in these upcoming years. I think you're going to be just an awesome, awesome leader. So I'm very proud that we have you at our high school.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
In recent years, there have been a push to recruit Black people in the STEM careers: science, technology, engineering, and mathematics careers. In your opinion, as a former science teacher, why is it important that Black people have representation in the STEM fields?
The simplest answer is because we are not there. Let me say that again. The simplest answer is because we are not there. Ms. Cotton, a couple of years ago, before COVID, a couple of years ago, I had the privilege of working with our school's science fair, or state science fair finalist. And, you know, my first disappointing piece was saying that the one student of color that was traveling, you know, to the event wasn't even Black American. He was truly African. So this is an African student, but okay, fine. You know, I have a brother in the car with me, you know, I'm driving along and whatnot. And several other students, and I shouldn't say I didn't have just that one of color, but I had several Asian students as well. But particularly looking for a Black student, you know, to go along. Well, there was only that one. And then we get to the science fair event, opening event. You know, everyone's walking around looking at some of the displays, you know, that the students are setting up, getting ready for judging and such. And then I'm walking through and looking, and to say that it was sparse is truly an understatement for looking at any African Americans or persons of the African diaspora that were present at that event. In all, beyond myself and the one student that we had from our school, there may have been 15 to 20 out of some 900 students. That's extremely disappointing. And then I look at, okay, well, what did you do? Bobe McBride, what did you personally do to try to get more Black male, Black female students involved in science fair? And I had to really, you know, spend some time and a really critical look and introspection to say, okay, well, I mentioned it. I, you know, tried to push a couple, but that was it. I just tried to push a couple, the ones that I thought would win. No. So, you know, after that, I made a very hard push in all of my classes. You will do this. I don't care that you don't want to compete. I don't care that you won't win. You will do this, because in making you do this, some of you are going to get to that point where it's like, well, I've already done this amount of work. If I got this award, I might as well go on to the next level, sort of thing. Imagine if that happened across all of our schools, what it could have meant just for the state of Florida, and then what it could possibly mean for this country in terms of our actively pushing and actively engaging our Black students for getting into the STEM fields. So there's that piece, is because we're simply not there. And then here's the other thing. Let's make no mistake about it. Ancient Africans were the leading scientists and mathematicians on this planet. I say again, ancient Africans were the leading scientists and mathematicians on this planet. But of course, as history has been told and retold and rewritten, all of that gets kind of pushed aside and whatnot. And, we're starting to become or re-educate ourselves to understand these people from history. But even as recently as just a couple of years ago, we're finding that NASA had the Hidden Figures, all of those Black female mathematicians, the human computers that got rockets up into space. Why are we just now hearing about these women? Because we don't have enough of us out there. Right here in town, we have the first female geophysicist, Dr. Edith Davis. Why is she the first one? And to be the first one, still for decades, we don't have another one yet. So why is it important? Because we are not there, and we can do it. Some of the challenges that we face is, simply some of the disparities that have persisted. But we can't let those disparities that continue to persist to be obstacles that we refuse to overcome, go around, or just plain old bust through. So it's extremely important for us to be there, because we're not. And we come from a legacy of having those abilities. Just somewhere along the way, we convinced ourselves that we can't, but we absolutely can. We absolutely can. I'm going to pat myself on the back for just a moment. One of the science courses that I taught at James S. Ricketts High School was Advanced Placement Biology. That is a college level course. Took a low level reader, got them to pass that exam. Low level reader passing an advanced placement exam, a college level course for biology. Now, while that's not necessarily a STEM field in terms of what we technically think of for STEM, the fact of the matter remains that if one teacher, can do that with God's grace, mercy, and help, what can a whole army of us do? So sorry to be long-winded on that one, but that is a passion of mine. We've got to get to where we can be, not because somebody else said that we can't, but because we know we should be. We just got to move forward. It means those voices from history, those pioneers, those standard 4 or 5 that everyone has heard of throughout the American public education system. But as I've grown and matured, I've also begun to understand that Black voices doesn't always necessarily mean a Black voice that's here in America. It's a Black voice that may be in another country. I've also accepted that Black voice doesn't necessarily mean a voice that's coming from a Black person. It could be a person that's not of color. It could be a white person, but they're been associated with a Black cultural issue for so long that they understand it so deeply that they're able to turn around and say, okay, hey, let me take this now back into this other part of our society and try to help, because I have a much better understanding. So Black voices doesn't necessarily mean any one thing to me. The largest part of it, yes, is, voices of the Black diaspora or the African diaspora. But I don't limit it to just that, because I now understand that there is space for an ally who is so closely aligned that they really understand. Now, can they fully embrace and understand every single thing? Absolutely not, because being Black is a lived experience. So an authentic Black voice is as much a lived experience as it is an allied one. But that allied voice, there are just going to be certain nuances that no matter how closely you live to something, until you experience it yourself, until you live it yourself on a day-to-day basis, not just a simple short period of time, you'll never fully appreciate the value.
Love that. And so, do you think that Black voices are suppressed in America? Why or why not?
Do I think that Black voices are suppressed in America? On some levels, yes, absolutely. And why do I think this? Well, our most recent political events, unfortunately, give very clear indication of. But I won't touch those. I will simply go a little bit further back into the Black Lives Matter, the BLM movement. And again, it's nothing new. So instead of that, let's go back a little bit further. 1960s civil rights movement. Some of the same issues that were addressed or trying to be addressed um, were suppressed. Pieces were answered and a whole lot was just left unaddressed, not taken care of at all. Um, One of the social theories that I really like exploring or framing my world with is called critical race theory. And with critical race theory, there's one tenet that is called interest convergence. And so what it basically means is that when it is in the best interest of the majority to meet the need or interest of the minority, then that particular item will be taken care of because the interests have now become aligned, interest convergence. Or as one of my best friends, who happens to be a white guy, says, people will always do what is in their own best interest, plain and simply. So when it comes to Black lives in America and Black voices in America, and have the voices been suppressed? Yes, that's my personal belief that voices have been suppressed. And why? Because the interest of Black Americans has not aligned well with the interest of the majority in America. And right or wrong, it's simply how it is. Now we have an opportunity to change it. Hence the 1960s, jump forward generations to BLM, and jump forward to where we are now. So things are changing. They're just changing very, very slowly. Um, yes, and a platform just like this one, where we pull diverse perspectives together and find, okay, here's some common threads, here's some divergent threads, and let's explore these things. How else can they be amplified? Um, I really appreciate the basic structure of the BLM movement. Because when one looks at it in its basic structure, it followed the same example that Dr. King had put in place with nonviolent protests, peaceful demonstrations. Unfortunately, it's always those people at the fringe, the extremists, that make things, much more difficult. But really getting out there and calling it what it is when there's social injustice, and not letting it pass by. But again, so when we have enough of us all together doing that sort of thing, then we start amplifying that voice to say, okay, hey, we're going to combat social injustice by educating and by pointing out this isn't right, and this isn't right, and it doesn't matter that it's been this way for the last 200 years. You now have the next 200 minutes that you can fix it. So, that would be a way that I would suggest for amplifying our voices. I spend as much time in the classroom teaching life lessons as I do content lessons. And now in my role as a school administrator, I don't necessarily have the content lesson. So every now and then I, get the opportunity to engage a student in that manner when they're like, hey, I'm having trouble with this. Really? Let's talk about that. But it's really life lessons and helping us to understand, if you want to make change, here's how you make it happen. If you notice that something is not right, you don't go off and start a fight about it because that's what's expected. Let's break that stereotype. Instead, let's come over here and let's do this a different way. And now, since I have your whole group here, let's understand something. All it takes is 2 of you. Oh, you have 3, 4, 5 of you? Why don't you make a pact that all of you are going to see each other through to graduation, and then all of you are going to get each other through to college or to trade school or to whatever it is. Or, okay, fine, you really like working with each other? Don't just work with each other, start building a business together. Start growing something. So how do I use my Black voice? By educating, by helping people to recognize microaggressions, by helping people to recognize social injustice, and then determining appropriate ways of dealing with that, by helping my Black males particularly to understand, if you present yourself this way, this is how the world sees you. They're not going to take the time to see the inside like I have that time. I have that opportunity with you. They don't. So this is what I need for you to do to get to where you're wanting to go. If you can help enough people get what they want, you can get everything you want. So if I can get you to understand, help enough people to understand that we are a positive people, we are a growth-minded people, you can get everything else that you want.
And do you have any upcoming projects, and where can the public find you?
Do I have any upcoming projects? One of the things that I have been thinking about is figuring out how to get enough of the guys across the various campuses to say, hey, we all want to be healthy and fit. Because, you know, one of the things I've noticed about you ladies, you have no problem saying, we're going to do a fit and fine by spring break club, or we're going to do a fit and fine summer body club, whatnot. Fellas, we don't do that. We just don't do that. But at the same time, what I'm now looking at is, particularly as a Black male, middle-aged Black male, we have certain health issues that we need to be made aware of. We need to discuss these issues. For instance, hypertension is rampant. It is genetic for African Americans to begin with, and then of course, Black males, more so than Black females. We don't talk about these issues. So, you know, one of the things I'd really like to start exploring is how to connect with other Black males, not only on my campus here at Rickards, but across other campuses, and saying, hey, let's just talk about some health issues. You know, just kind of starting that very loosely held support group just to see how it goes. But, you know, to also say, we need to have conversation. We need to take care of ourselves. We need to be here. If we're going to lead, we need to be here to lead. And then as far as finding me, definitely can find me on the school website for James S. Rickards High School. Can find me personal email, sparkmyperformance@gmail.com. Can find me on YouTube, Spark My Performance. Can find me on YouTube, Coach Bobby, Bobe. And yes, I do actually have a couple of dance performances that are out there on YouTube, but I ain't gonna tell you how to find them. You find those on your own.
Thank you so much, Mr. McBride. I am in awe of you.
Thank you.
I am. I thank you so much for taking the time out to do this with me. And not to gas you up any more than I have, it has been an absolute pleasure to work with you.
The pleasure is mine. It's an honor to work with you also. It's
Thank
always so much better working with someone who is just as passionate about the work.
I could not have said it better myself.
Yeah.
And so I thank you all for joining us again. Join us next week where we will be interviewing another guest, and have a wonderful day.